Tonight, imagine yourself walking slowly into a quiet temple under the silver light of the moon. The soft glow of candles dances across polished wooden floors, casting long, wavering shadows that seem to sway in time with your own breath. Incense curls through the air like lazy, fragrant clouds, carrying whispers of sandalwood, jasmine, and something almost indescribable, perhaps the memory of hundreds of years of devotion. A distant bell tolls with deliberate, languid rhythm, marking each breath, each heartbeat, each subtle step you take. Outside, leaves rustle softly, stirred by an unseen night breeze, as if the forest itself were breathing alongside you. You may think your thoughts will stay still, but even the calmest mind has its little storms. One moment, you are fully present in the gentle hush of the temple. The next, memories, worries, and daydreams drift in like mischievous spirits, teasing you. Before you sink fully into this evening's story, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if your heart truly wishes to join me here. If you'd like, share where you are and what hour it is. The world feels a little smaller when we breathe together. The temple doors creak softly as you enter, and the familiar scent of old wood and incense greets you like an old friend. Every surface seems to hum with quiet history. The cracks in the beams, the faint golden traces of lacquer, even the stone steps outside worn smooth by generations of pilgrims. Your footfalls are silent on the polished floor as you glide deeper inside. A monk somewhere in a distant hall laughs softly at the absurdity of life, or maybe it's just the wind playing tricks. You remember a story of a monk who would count leaves falling outside his window, convinced that each one carried a fleeting insight. Other monks still argue whether it was truly meditative or simply whimsical boredom. Here, in this hushed temple, everything feels possible. Everything is noticed. Candlelight flickers, reflecting on your eyes. The gentle sway of shadows across statues of the Buddha seems almost like a slow, polite dance, inviting your attention without demanding it. Outside, the leaves rustle again, and you notice a tiny spider spinning an impossibly delicate web in the corner, catching a stray glimmer of light, a minor miracle, perhaps, or just the universe doing its quiet work while you stand there, half amused, half entranced. Somewhere in the distance, the bell tolls again, deeper, more resonant, and you find yourself breathing in perfect sync, imagining your lungs filling with calm and exhaling the tension you've carried all day. A playful thought surfaces. If monks really had superpowers, surely one would be able to make the bell ring by sneezing. You smile at the absurdity and keep walking, letting the gentle hum of the temple guide each step. Now, dim the lights, let a soft fan whisper like a distant wind, and allow yourself to drift with each gentle step as we begin tonight's journey into stories of mindfulness, wisdom, and quiet wonder. With every inhale, feel yourself a little lighter. With every exhale, imagine stress leaving your body like the smoke curling from the incense. The temple is vast yet intimate, a paradox that somehow fits the mind perfectly. You move past a low altar adorned with simple flowers and a single flickering candle. You feel the presence of all who came before you: students, wanderers, nuns, and monks, each leaving a quiet imprint on the wood, the air, and the very essence of this sacred space. And so, your journey begins. You do not rush. There's nowhere urgent to be. You simply step, notice, and breathe. The moonlight spills through a latticed window, pooling at your feet like silver water, and for a moment, the world beyond the temple wall seems to vanish entirely. A faint, playful chuckle reaches your ears. You're not sure whether it's a monk, the wind, or your own imagination, but it reminds you that even in serenity, life retains a gentle sense of humour. Monks have long debated whether laughter and meditation can coexist, and you, standing here, think yes, they can, and they do. Your fingers brush against the smooth wood of a railing, cool under your touch, grounding you, somewhere nearby. A candle sputters and steadies, a tiny reminder that impermanence is everywhere, even in the softest light. You pause at a carved doorway, peering into the next chamber where shadows hide untold stories. One story, told in whispers, speaks of a monk who once spent a night meditating under a waterfall, convinced that the water's rhythm could teach him the secret language of the universe. Others argue he simply enjoyed getting soaked. Either way, the legend persists, and you allow yourself a quiet smile, imagining the cascade, the cold splash, and the profound or ridiculous insights it might have brought. Here, in this moonlit temple, nothing feels hurried. The air is a lullaby, and you, with each careful step, are invited to sink deeper into the embrace of night, the comfort of age-old wood, the fragrance of incense, and the gentle wisdom of monks long gone yet quietly present. You begin to understand that stories are not just told, they are lived, breathed, and felt, often in silence, often in stillness. You step out from the temple's warm glow onto a narrow path lined with towering bamboo, each stalk swaying gently, whispering secrets to its neighbour. Moonlight filters through the dense canopy, painting the path in shifting patterns of silver and shadow, and you notice how every step seems to echo softly, as if the forest itself is acknowledging your presence. The rustling leaves create a subtle symphony, and you realize that wandering monks historically preferred such secluded paths not just for solitude, but because the bamboo groves offered both meditation spaces and sustenance. Bamboo shoots, water from hidden springs, and a quiet rhythm to life. You pause for a moment, noticing the way the shadows twist and bend, and can't help but smile at the thought that, centuries ago, some monks believed the wind through bamboo carried the whispers of past sages, offering guidance if you listened closely enough. Monks still argue whether this was metaphorical or a literal belief. A curious anecdote drifts into your mind, one you may have heard before. A hermit monk who supposedly trained a crow to deliver messages to nearby temples. The bird would carry small scrolls, sometimes mistaking random leaves for letters, and the monks claimed it was a test of patience. Scholars debate whether such stories are fanciful exaggerations or represent early attempts at communication networks among isolated monastic communities. You chuckle softly, imagining the annoyed crow perched on a branch, eyeing its human companion as though to say, "Really? Another note?" Your hands brush lightly against the smooth bamboo as you walk, grounding yourself in texture and sound. Each step encourages mindfulness, the pressure of your feet on the path, the faint scent of wet earth and bamboo, the whisper of wind against leaves. In one clearing, moonlight glints on a small puddle, and for a brief moment, it mirrors the stars above, making you feel suspended between earth and sky. Here, in this quiet interlude, you can almost hear the teachings themselves, the impermanence of all things, the beauty in observation, and the subtle joy of noticing what is usually overlooked. You notice a small stone lantern, half hidden beneath the foliage. Its presence is curious yet deliberate, perhaps left by a travelling monk centuries ago. Monks still debate whether these lanterns were intended purely for light or as markers for meditation exercises that guided steps in silence. The air around it smells faintly of damp moss and faint incense, perhaps a remnant from an evening ritual long past. You kneel briefly to observe the delicate carvings, tiny symbols, lotus motifs, and whimsical figures that look almost like playful imps watching you with hidden amusement. It's a gentle reminder that even in places of solemnity, humour and wonder coexist. As you continue along the bamboo path, a breeze rustles the leaves overhead, and you imagine monks practicing walking meditation here, slow, deliberate, and entirely present. There is a fringe story of a monk who once timed his steps with the natural rhythm of falling bamboo leaves, convinced that syncing with nature could awaken hidden layers of consciousness. Some scholars call this pseudoscientific, while others insist it reflects a deeper understanding of bodily rhythm and environmental attunement. Either way, it is charming, and you can't help but feel a pang of envy for the patient. Attentive focus it must have required. A small stream runs parallel to the path, murmuring softly, almost like the quiet chanting of a distant temple. The sound invites you to slow further, matching your breathing to its gentle cadence. You pause and watch a tiny frog leap from stone to stone, creating ripples that spread across the water. According to an old temple tale, this frog once interrupted a monk's meditation, prompting a playful reflection on the futility of strict focus and the importance of embracing distraction as part of mindfulness. You smile, thinking that perhaps the frog is the real teacher tonight. The bamboo sways again, whispering in voices both real and imagined, reminding you that the path itself is alive, each stalk a sentinel of stories past and present. You notice a cluster of leaves glinting under the moonlight, shaped almost like tiny hands folded in prayer. Your fingers hover above them without touching, honouring the silence. Monks still argue whether the magic of the bamboo comes from the plants themselves or from the mind willing to see wonder. As you step past, the path curves, inviting you deeper into the forest, yet offering the comforting knowledge that the temple, with its warm candlelight and soft bells, is always within reach of memory, a gentle tether for your wandering thoughts. You take a deep breath, inhaling the cool night air, the faint scent of moss and earth, and feel a subtle clarity settle over your mind. The bamboo path is more than a way to the next hall or the next story. It is a meditation itself, a quiet teacher reminding you to walk slowly, observe closely, and notice the small, whimsical miracles that punctuate every step. A playful thought emerges. Perhaps the leaves are gossiping about your progress, debating whether you are mindful enough. You smile at this idea, letting it drift away like the wind through the stalks. And so you continue, step by measured step, fully present, yet gently carried forward by the rhythm of leaves, the memory of monks past, and the whispering bamboo that seems almost to guide your journey, inviting you into the heart of the hidden mountain temple. The path opens onto a small clearing where a massive bronze bell stands on a simple wooden frame, its surface mottled with age and flecks of green patina. Moonlight glances off its rounded form, making it appear almost alive, as if the bell itself were breathing softly in the night. You pause, drawn by a curious mixture of reverence and playful anticipation, and remember that bells like this have long been used in temples to signal prayer times, mark transitions between meditation periods, and even to call wandering monks back from forest paths. The sound of a bell can carry for miles, slicing through fog and forest alike, a call to presence and attention that has endured for centuries. Scholars still argue whether the resonance of these bells was purely functional or intended to harmonize with the human body's energy centers. You reach out to touch the bell, its cool surface grounding your hand. There's a story whispered among the monks of a foggy morning when a bell supposedly rang itself. No hand, no rope, just a deep, echoing toll that startled the entire monastery. Some say it was the work of spirits. Others insist it was a subtle vibration from the mountains that only the bell could amplify. Monks still debate whether such tales are literal or metaphorical lessons on listening more carefully to the world. You can't help but chuckle, imagining the monks running in pajamas to answer a bell summoned by nature rather than human effort. The air is thick with the scent of incense from a nearby altar, curling lazily in the cool night. A frog croaks somewhere off to the side, a small, unexpected note in the bell's grand symphony. You notice tiny etchings along the bell's rim, lotus flowers, curling script, and playful figures peering out from the metal. It seems someone, long ago, decided that even a bell should carry personality, humor, and a story. A reminder that sacred objects can also be companions in quiet amusement. You imagine the monk who carved these, perhaps humming to himself, questioning whether he was decorating or meditating. Scholars continue to debate the purpose of such ornate bells, ritualistic, didactic, or merely whimsical artistry. But standing here, you sense it is all of these and more. The bell tower is framed by a low wooden fence, half hidden in moss. Stepping closer, you notice scratches and wear along the posts, evidence of countless hands, countless generations of monks passing through, leaving traces of themselves in subtle, unseen ways. There's a fringe story that one particularly mischievous novice once hung tiny bells from the fence posts, so that any step along the path would create a chorus of playful jingles. The senior monk's reaction was apparently a mix of exasperation and secret delight. You can almost hear the faint echoes of that laughter carried across the decades, a reminder that levity is welcome even in solemn spaces. As you stand before the great bell, you experiment with your own touch, pressing gently against its surface. The metal hums softly, and you imagine the physics behind it, the vibration travelling through the bronze, amplified and sustained by its hollow interior. Monks still argue about whether the precise alloy, the bell's thickness, or even its age contributes most to the profound resonance that can be felt as much in the chest as in the ears. You lean in closer, letting the sound envelop you, imagining waves of mindfulness rippling outward, merging with the rhythm of the forest and the slow cadence of your own heartbeat. A sudden breeze stirs the incense, and for a moment, the smoke swirls directly around the bell, forming ghostly ribbons that seem to dance in time with your breath. You remember another tale, perhaps a fringe one, of a monk who claimed the bell could speak when he rang it precisely at midnight, conveying messages from ancestors. Others in the monastery argued this was metaphorical, a poetic reflection on attentiveness, but the novice monks reportedly tested it every night anyway, laughing when nothing happened except the echo. You smile, appreciating the timeless tension between rigor and whimsy, tradition and experimentation in these quiet halls. Nearby, a small stone basin catches the moonlight, filled with water from a spring. You notice its surface trembling slightly with the resonance of the bell, and it occurs to you that monks may have intentionally placed water here to visualize sound waves. Some historians support this. Others consider it a happy accident. Either way, The effect is mesmerizing, creating moving patterns of reflected light and shadow that seem almost alive, reminding you that mindfulness can be playful, beautiful, and entirely present in a single glance. The surrounding forest listens silently. A fox rustles in the underbrush, unbothered by your presence, as if acknowledging that this bell, this night, and your wandering footsteps are all part of a larger, living meditation. You run your fingers along the carved inscriptions once more and feel the smooth dips and ridges, a tactile echo of the centuries spent ringing this bell, polishing its surface, reading its stories, and debating its significance. Perhaps the bell has absorbed all these energies, humor, devotion, curiosity, and quiet wonder, and now shares them with anyone willing to stop and listen, standing there, bathed in moonlight and the soft aroma of incense. You imagine the bell's first strike, a single deep tone, rolling across the hills and forests, inviting both present and past monks to awareness, reflection, and perhaps a little amusement. You take a slow, deep breath, letting the imagined resonance vibrate through your body. This bell, like the bamboo path, is a gentle teacher, reminding you that stillness can hold energy, that stories carry both truth and playful exaggeration, and that even the simplest object can invite wonder, curiosity, and deep, contemplative joy. You follow a narrow stone stairway that winds gently upward, the faint scent of moss mingling with lingering traces of incense. The path leads to a small courtyard where a nun kneels on a woven mat, performing a tea ritual that seems both deliberate and otherworldly under the moonlight. You approach quietly, careful not to disturb her concentration, but curious enough to take in every motion. Her fingers move with delicate precision, tracing patterns in the tea leaves, tilting the kettle just so, letting steam curl upward like tiny spirals of thought. Monks have long taught that tea rituals are a form of moving meditation, a way to train attention and cultivate mindfulness with even the simplest, everyday action. Scholars still argue whether such rituals originated in China, Japan, or spread simultaneously through regional monasteries, but here, at this mountain temple, the ritual feels timeless, rooted in the very stones beneath your feet. A quirky story drifts into your mind, one the monks whisper with both admiration and exasperation. It is said that a nun once misread a tea leaf pattern and, convinced it was an omen, spent 3 days trying to correct it, arranging the leaves until they resembled a miniature lotus pond. Observers reportedly chuckled quietly, but agreed she had achieved a perfect meditation session, whether she intended it or not. The story continues to be told as a playful reminder that sometimes the process matters more than the interpretation, and you can't help but smile at the thought of someone taking tea leaves so seriously that they created their own little sacred landscape. The nun's movements are slow but confident, each gesture blending ritual with fluid artistry. She lifts the kettle, pours the water in a precise arc, and watches the surface ripple. The steam catches the candlelight, forming fleeting, luminous shapes that seem to dance over the cup. Monks still debate whether these fleeting shapes hold symbolic meaning, or whether it is the observer's mind, projecting stories onto harmless vapors. You take a soft breath, imagining the steam as a bridge between the mundane and the mystical, each wisp carrying both scent and silence, each curl a meditation in motion. A gentle breeze enters through an open lattice window, rustling her robes and the delicate bamboo chimes hanging nearby. The sound mingles with the trickling of water from a nearby fountain, creating a natural symphony of contemplation. According to one fringe anecdote, a novice once tried to match the kettle's pouring rhythm to the chimes, believing the resulting harmony would awaken hidden insights. Whether or not he succeeded remains unclear, but the effort itself became a small legend in the temple, demonstrating that playful curiosity is a valid path toward mindfulness. Even if no enlightenment is immediately apparent, you step closer, noting the subtle, almost imperceptible gestures she makes while adjusting her posture and the placement of the cups. These tiny movements, seemingly insignificant, carry centuries of refinement, passed from one practitioner to another. Each adjustment of a cup, each tilt of a wrist, is both a lesson in attention and a poetic expression of care. You notice the way her eyes occasionally lift toward the moonlight, as if silently acknowledging the world outside the temple walls while remaining fully present within the ritual. Scholars debate whether such mindful glances are distractions or essential elements of awareness, and standing here, you feel both possibilities coexist. The tea leaves swirl gently, forming abstract patterns in the cup. The nun leans over, studying them as if reading an ancient script written by water and leaf. There is a fringe belief among some monks that these patterns can reveal hidden truths, not in the sense of prophecy, but as reflections of one's inner state. You watch her for a moment, realizing that the patterns might reveal nothing at all, or everything, depending on the attention given. This is the delicate balance of mindfulness, observing without clinging, interpreting without judgment, and finding stillness amid gentle curiosity. As the ritual continues, you notice the subtle sounds, the faint scrape of her sleeve against the mat, the soft clink of ceramic, the whisper of steam lifting into the cool night. Each sound draws your attention, yet allows your mind to settle, rather than jump. You remember the tale of another nun who would hum softly while pouring tea, believing her own voice infused the practice with calm. Other monks argued this was a distraction, but the results were undeniable. Visitors often left her chamber with hearts lighter, laughter more present, and attention sharpened. You can't help but feel a similar calm enveloping you as you observe. Finally, the tea is poured, and she lifts the cup with deliberate care, taking a single, thoughtful sip. Her eyes close briefly, and a soft smile appears, as if she has touched something ineffable. You inhale the scent, rich with warmth and subtle sweetness, imagining the centuries of monks and nuns who have performed this same ritual, each adding their own quiet energy to the space. The act is simple, yet profound, teaching that devotion can reside in the smallest gestures, and wisdom often hides in the mundane. As you step back, letting her return fully to her practice, you feel the lingering sense of quiet attentiveness. The courtyard is alive with subtle sounds, moonlight, and the memory of gentle, focused hands guiding water over leaves. A playful thought enters your mind. Perhaps the tea leaves themselves giggle when observed too closely, but you let it drift, appreciating both the whimsy and the serenity. Each motion, each aroma, each flicker of light is a reminder that mindfulness is not just taught, it is lived, experienced, and sometimes even laughed at. You follow a narrow corridor, the walls lined with wooden shelves that seem to hum with quiet expectancy. Moonlight filters through high windows, dust motes drifting lazily in its silver beams. At the end of the corridor, a small chamber awaits, its door slightly ajar, revealing the dim glow of a lantern's illuminating stacks of scrolls and parchment. Here lie the hidden sutra scrolls, some untouched for centuries, their edges curling with age. the ink faded yet still resonant with quiet authority. You step carefully inside, mindful of the weight of history pressing gently around you, imagining the countless monks who have unrolled these scrolls, fingers tracing the script as they whispered chants into the shadows. Scholars still debate the authenticity of many of these sutras, wondering whether some were created as teaching tools or if they contain genuine revelations long forgotten. A quirky tale surfaces in your mind, a fringe anecdote told by monks with both reverence and amusement. It is said that one scroll, hidden behind a false panel for decades, contained instructions for a meditation so intricate that the novice attempting it allegedly fell asleep mid-practice, only to wake convinced he had glimpsed enlightenment. Some historians scoff at the story, suggesting it was an exaggeration to inspire discipline, while others insist it reflects the unpredictable, sometimes humorous nature of deep contemplation. You smile quietly at the image of a monk snoring among ancient wisdom, the universe patiently waiting as he dreams. The chamber smells faintly of aged paper and the lingering trace of incense from ceremonies long past. Your hand hovers above a scroll, careful not to disturb the fragile fibers, yet drawn by the patterns of script that wind like rivers across the parchment. Each character seems deliberate, almost playful in its elegance, reminding you that even sacred text carries a human touch. A faint wind slips through a crack in the window, rustling the scrolls like a gentle sigh, and you imagine monks centuries ago debating the exact pronunciation of certain syllables, their voices soft yet insistent. Some insisted on traditional recitations, others experimented with melodic variation. Monks still argue whether the sound or the meaning carries more spiritual weight, and you feel the tension between precision and presence hanging lightly in the air. One particular scroll catches your eye, a slender, yellowed piece of parchment inked with intricate diagrams and cryptic annotations. According to a fringe story, it was penned by a monk who believed the placement of ink dots could influence dreams and even guide the mind towards subtle realizations. Other scholars consider this superstition, yet the temple community preserved the scroll, allowing it to exist as a playful testament to the inventive curiosity of monastic life. You gently trace the lines with your eyes, imagining the care it took to draw each curve, the patience that transformed simple ink into a portal for contemplation. A faint sound drifts from the corridor outside, perhaps a distant frog, perhaps a monk moving silently, checking candles. The scrolls seem to respond in kind, whispering their own secrets in the language of scent, shadow, and texture. You notice a tiny smudge in the corner, likely the mark of a novice's finger centuries ago, and are reminded that even the most sacred texts bear evidence of human imperfection. This imperfection does not diminish their power, it enhances it, making them approachable, alive, and full of personality. Scholars still debate whether the occasional smudges were accidental or intentional, meant to teach humility and attentiveness, and you consider both possibilities with quiet amusement. You unroll another scroll, longer and more ornate, the edges worn smooth from repeated handling. The text describes a meditation practice involving synchronized breathing and subtle gestures of the hands, each movement intended to align body and mind. Fringe anecdotes suggest that some monks, attempting the most elaborate sequences, would inadvertently create patterns resembling tiny dances, completely unnoticed until years later. Other monks criticized these as distractions, yet those same patterns inspired future students to approach meditation with a light heart. You imagine the fluidity of these gestures, the soft rustle of robes, and the gentle cadence of breath that carries the intention behind the words. As you continue to explore, you notice the way the scrolls are arranged, some carefully stacked, others tucked into crevices or resting on low platforms. The organization feels simultaneously meticulous and whimsical, reflecting centuries of both discipline and playful improvisation. Monks still debate whether such arrangements were strategic, symbolic, or simply the outcome of human forgetfulness. You inhale the mingled scent of parchment and incense again, feeling a quiet thrill at being in the presence of these long silent voices, their wisdom and humour suspended in the air like floating dust. The chamber offers a rare stillness, one that encourages deep observation. You take a seat on the wooden floor, letting your fingers hover just above a scroll without touching, appreciating its texture and history. Moonlight pools across the surface, illuminating faded characters and delicate illustrations of lotus flowers, mountain peaks, and tiny meditative figures. You imagine the monks who created these pages, their fingers stained with ink, their minds both focused and wandering, aware of the sacred yet aware of the absurdity of trying to capture infinite truths on finite paper. Here, in this quiet sanctum, the hidden sutras teach without speaking: patience, attentiveness, humility, and the gentle recognition that wisdom is often both profound and playful. You close your eyes briefly, letting the aura of the scrolls envelop you, imagining centuries of hands tracing, unrolling and rolling again. Somewhere, faint laughter might ripple through time, a reminder that sacred practices are not immune to whimsy. This chamber, these scrolls, and the moonlit air together offer a meditation not just on content but on presence itself. As you finally rise, stepping back toward the corridor, you feel a lingering connection to the monks who preserved these hidden texts, to the novices who accidentally created beauty, and to the playful curiosity that continues to animate the temple. You take a final, deep breath, exhaling gently, carrying with you both the weight of history and the lightness of imagination, ready to move forward into the next step of this quiet, reflective journey. You step outside the chamber, greeted by the soft silver light of the moon reflecting off a nearby lotus pond. The water is almost mirror-like, disturbed only by the occasional ripple from a frog or the gentle fall of a leaf. You walk slowly to the edge, noticing how the floating lotus flowers sway with quiet elegance, their petals glistening as if sprinkled with starlight. Monks have long used lotus ponds not merely as ornamental features, but as meditative anchors, teaching that stillness on the surface often masks a bustling world beneath, much like the human mind. Scholars still debate whether the placement of each plant was carefully symbolic or left to the whims of nature and chance. Yet the effect remains mesmerizing. A curious story surfaces in your mind, one the temple caretakers whisper with a mixture of reverence and humor. It is said that a particularly contemplative monk once trained a small frog to sit atop a lotus leaf during meditation sessions, believing that its presence would focus his awareness on impermanence and mindfulness. The frog, however, often leapt unexpectedly, sending ripples across the water, causing the monk to erupt in laughter mid-practice. This tale has become a gentle reminder that even in strict meditation, life's playful interruptions hold lessons. You kneel by the pond's edge, feeling the cool stone beneath your hands and the faint scent of damp earth and water lilies in the air. The reflection of the moon on the water seems to shimmer in rhythm with your breath, a natural guide into attentive awareness. Monks still argue whether watching these reflections constitutes a legitimate meditative practice or merely a pleasant distraction, and you allow yourself to experience both possibilities. You notice the intricate patterns created as the petals shift, small ripples intersecting and forming fleeting geometric shapes, each unique and transient, echoing the lessons of impermanence the temple holds dear. A gentle breeze stirs the pond, causing the lotus flowers to sway in unison, creating a slow, hypnotic dance. Fringe stories suggest that certain monks believed that by observing this dance, one could glimpse subtle truths about the interconnectivity of all beings. Skeptics dismiss it as fanciful, yet there's undeniable serenity in watching the flowers sway. A calm that seems both scientific in its effect on the mind and poetic in its symbolism. You breathe deeply, letting the aroma of water and earth fill your lungs, imagining that each inhale carries clarity and each exhale releases tension. From the corner of your eye, a koi fish glides gracefully beneath the lotus leaves, its movements barely disturbing the water's surface. The monks often regarded these fish as living symbols of perseverance and transformation, inspiring stories of devotion and discipline. One fringe anecdote suggests that a monk once whispered to the fish during his morning meditation, claiming that their silent presence communicated profound insights. Others argue that the monk simply enjoyed companionship in solitude, but either interpretation adds layers to your experience, inviting curiosity and gentle amusement. The pond's surface reflects not only the moon and surrounding flora, but also glimpses of the temple itself, creating a complex interplay of reality and reflection. You notice the subtle movements of the lanterns nearby, their light flickering on the water, merging with the moonlight in a soft, ever-changing pattern. Scholars debate whether such visual interplay was intentionally designed to enhance meditation, or if it emerged naturally from architectural choices. You let the ambiguity linger, appreciating the mystery rather than seeking certainty. A small stone bridge arches over the pond, worn smooth by centuries of footsteps. You cross it slowly, feeling the cool stones beneath your hands on the railing. A playful thought drifts into your mind. Perhaps the lotus flowers are silently judging your walking technique, or maybe they simply sway in amusement at human pretensions. The pond invites contemplation, but also a light-heartedness that balances seriousness and levity. A reminder that even in meditation, humor can coexist with insight. Sitting briefly on a low bench beside the pond, you notice tiny insects skimming the water's surface, their delicate patterns tracing ephemeral trails across the reflections of moon and lotus. This moment feels like a quiet conversation between elements: water, light, flora, and fauna interacting seamlessly. Fringe anecdotes claim that monks once observed these tiny movements to understand the impermanence of all phenomena, turning natural observation into profound contemplation. You watch, breath aligning with the gentle rhythm of the pond, and feel a deep, serene connection with the living tapestry before you. The pond teaches in whispers rather than proclamations. The lotus flowers, the subtle ripples, the occasional frog's leap, all instruct in patience, presence, and observation. You feel the weight of centuries of practice condensed into this single moment of stillness. Even the cool night air seems to carry silent encouragement. Observe, breathe, and notice the interplay of life, fleeting yet full of meaning. You inhale deeply once more, allowing the peace and gentle wonder of this lotus pond to infuse your senses fully. Rising slowly, you leave the water's edge, carrying with you the subtle lessons of reflection, impermanence, and gentle delight. The moonlight continues to play upon the pond's surface, and you notice that even as you step away, the ripples linger, reminders that quiet moments echo long after they pass. With each step, you sense that both the pond and its teachings accompany you, shaping the rhythm of your mind as you continue deeper into the temple's night-bound embrace. You move from the serene lotus pond toward the courtyard where evening chanting begins, the soft cadence of voices drifting toward you like a warm, enveloping fog. Moonlight pools across the stone tiles, casting elongated shadows of the monks as they sway slightly with each resonant chant. The sound is deep, measured, and rhythmic, echoing off walls and open spaces in a way that feels both intimate and boundless. Historically, chanting has been a central practice in Buddhist temples, employed to focus the mind, cultivate compassion, and harmonize collective energy. Scholars still debate whether the repetitive patterns primarily affect cognitive states or have a spiritual resonance beyond scientific measurement, leaving you suspended in both curiosity and tranquility. A playful story surfaces. A novice once miscounted chants in the hall, realizing midway that he had accidentally synchronized his recitation with a fluttering bat near the roof. The senior monks reportedly paused, exchanged amused glances, and continued the session as if the bat were an ordained participant. The tale lives on as a reminder that perfection in meditation is less important than presence and attentiveness, and you smile at the image of a tiny, winged meditation assistant adding unintended harmony to sacred sound. The air carries incense mixed with the cool hint of evening, threading between each syllable. You notice that monks chant in different octaves and tempos, blending harmony with personal rhythm. Fringe anecdotes suggest that some masters claim specific vocal frequencies can influence subtle energies in the body. Skeptics call it pseudoscience, yet the psychological effect of the chant is undeniable. You feel the low, vibrating hum reverberate through the courtyard and into your chest, sinking gently with your breathing, each exhale releasing tension, and each inhale pulling in calm. You step closer, letting the cadence guide your attention to tiny details, the flicker of candlelight, the movement of robes, the shifting of feet across stone. A delicate breeze stirs the air, carrying whispers of laughter or perhaps playful conversation hidden within the rhythm. Monks have long debated whether humor diminishes the sanctity of ritual or enhances mindfulness, and you sense the coexistence of both, serenity and playfulness interwoven, like threads in a richly textured tapestry. The courtyard is lined with lanterns, their reflections dancing on the polished stones. You notice a particular monk whose eyes glint with mischief, subtly adjusting his stance so that his shadow briefly waves at those around him. Others seem oblivious, entirely absorbed in the chant, yet the tiny gesture creates a moment of shared amusement for the perceptive few. Scholars argue whether such light-heartedness within sacred practice undermines reverence or exemplifies a deeper understanding of joy as a spiritual principle. Standing here, you feel the balance. Awe and amusement can coexist, each amplifying the other. The chants themselves vary subtly, some syllables drawn longer, others clipped sharply. You imagine the meticulous training it must take to maintain this rhythm while remaining fully present. Fringe stories tell of monks who could sustain continuous chant for hours without faltering, claiming to enter a trance-like state where time seemed irrelevant. Other monks dispute the feasibility, yet the lore persists, illustrating both devotion and playful exaggeration, a hallmark of the temple's oral tradition. your attention drifts to the surrounding courtyard. Stone statues half hidden in shadow, bamboo rustling faintly in the distance, and the moon casting delicate silver patterns over every surface. Each element contributes to the immersive tapestry of sound and light. You notice the way the chanting echoes, bouncing back and forth between walls, creating a subtle layering effect, almost as if hundreds of voices were speaking in secret harmony. Scholars debate whether architectural design was intentionally calculated for acoustics or merely serendipitous. But either explanation enhances the magical quality of the experience. A slight gust shifts the incense smoke, causing it to swirl around the chanting monks, blending with the moonlight and creating transient, ethereal shapes above their heads. You watch the patterns move and dissolve, imagining them as visual manifestations of each syllable, each intention, and each breath. Fringe anecdotes describe monks meditating on these shapes, seeing visions of past teachers or abstract insights, whether literal or metaphorical. You feel the effect, an increased sensitivity, a heightened sense of presence. Time seems suspended here. The chant continues in steady waves, yet you notice the subtleties. A momentary pause, a breath held too long, a shadow shifting ever so slightly. Even as a silent observer, you are swept into the rhythm, your own breathing becoming a quiet accompaniment to the melody. Monks still debate whether this absorption constitutes meditative progress or a simple psychosomatic response, and you allow both interpretations to coexist, neither demanding priority, both enriching the experience. Finally, you pause at the edge of the courtyard, feeling the resonance linger in your chest, carrying with it calm, amusement, and subtle reflection. The chanting does not end with a dramatic flourish. It dissipates gradually, leaving behind a silence that hums softly, filled with echoes and the soft presence of attentive beings. You inhale, exhaling slowly, noticing the interplay between sound, shadow, and breath, appreciating how this moment exemplifies both structured devotion and gentle wonder. You wander beyond the courtyard, following a narrow stone path that leads to the monastery's herb garden, where the air is thick with the heady scent of medicinal plants and damp soil. Moonlight bathes the garden in silver, casting long shadows across rows of carefully cultivated herbs, ginger, ginseng, chamomile, and a few mysterious plants whose names only the senior monks know. Historically, Buddhist monasteries often cultivated herbs both for healing and meditation, blending practical necessity with spiritual practice. Scholars still debate whether some remedies were based on empirical observation or steeped more in symbolic tradition, yet the gardens themselves offer a serene, contemplative space. A playful anecdote drifts into your awareness. A young monk once accidentally mixed up two trays, one with potent herbs and the other with ordinary leaves, leading to an unintended experiment in patience as the resulting tea was shared among fellow novices. The story has persisted in whispers, illustrating both humility and laughter as integral parts of monastic life. You can almost see the monks sitting cross-legged, eyes wide as they sipped cautiously, only to erupt in quiet giggles at the surprising flavors. You kneel beside a row of chamomile, letting your fingers graze the tiny blossoms, feeling the soft texture and inhaling their gentle, calming aroma. Fringe anecdotes claim that the mere act of touching these herbs can influence meditative focus, while skeptics dismiss such claims as superstition. You notice that the gentle rustle of leaves and the faint trickle of water from a nearby irrigation channel create a rhythm that blends seamlessly with your breath. This subtle harmony of sensory input is itself a meditation, a quiet reminder that attentiveness can arise in the simplest of moments. A tiny frog hops between plants, pausing briefly as if observing you, before disappearing into the shadowed foliage. Monks have long regarded such creatures as playful companions, symbols of alertness and adaptability, or gentle reminders of life's unpredictable interruptions. Fringe stories recount a monk who spent weeks tracking the same frog during meditation, claiming the creature's movements mirrored the undulating patterns of the mind itself. You smile at the thought of such diligent observation, appreciating the humour in devotion without diminishing its depth. The garden contains a small stone statue of a laughing monk perched among the plants. You kneel before it, noting how the figure's smile seems to echo across centuries, embodying both humour and wisdom. Some scholars argue that these statues serve as subtle psychological cues, guiding meditation by encouraging lightheartedness, while others interpret them purely as spiritual symbols. Either interpretation resonates as you sit quietly, feeling a soft amusement ripple through your consciousness. Mingling with the calming scent of herbs and moonlit tranquility, water trickles gently from a small stone fountain at the garden's centre, producing a subtle rhythm that contrasts with the distant chanting now faded into memory. You notice the interplay of sound and scent, observing how your own breathing aligns with the gentle gurgle. Fringe tales speak of monks who meditated alongside fountains for weeks at a time, claiming that subtle variations in water flow provided insights into impermanence and stillness. Other scholars question the literal validity, yet the symbolism is powerful. The water teaches patience, flow, and attentive observation. You bend down to examine a single plant more closely, tracing its veins and inhaling its aroma. The moonlight catches dew droplets, sparkling like tiny lanterns on each leaf. Monks often teach that noticing such micro details is a practice in presence, focusing on the minute to cultivate awareness of the greater whole. Scholars debate whether this mindfulness was intended as a practical skill, a spiritual exercise, or a playful observation of nature's humour, yet you sense all three coexisting effortlessly here. A gentle breeze swirls the air, shifting the shadows of herbs and statues, creating fleeting patterns on the stone paths. You watch as the garden seems to breathe with you, alive in quiet dialogue, whispering lessons on balance, patience, and delight in simplicity. Fringe anecdotes describe monks who would meditate with eyes closed while imagining the garden's life, claiming this enhanced their internal visualization. Whether literal or symbolic, you allow yourself to merge with the garden's rhythm, feeling a profound calm take hold. Stepping back, you take a slow, deep breath, inhaling the mingling scents of earth, flowers, and water. The herb garden, though quiet and unassuming, feels alive with history, humour, and attention. Its delicate sounds and subtle aromas teach that mindfulness does not require grand gestures. It thrives in the ordinary, the overlooked, and the beautifully transient. You sense the continuity of generations, the laughter, the mistakes, and the quiet mastery embedded in every stone and leaf, a living testament to the playful, profound rhythm of monastic life. Finally, you rise and continue along the path, leaving the herb garden behind, carrying with you both the aromatic calm and the gentle lessons it imparted. Moonlight guides your steps, and you notice that even as you depart, the garden seems to pulse quietly, a subtle invitation to return and notice again, to breathe, to observe, and to delight in simplicity. You follow a winding path that leads into a bamboo grove, the tall stalks swaying gently in the night breeze. The sound of leaves brushing against each other creates a soft, natural percussion, almost like a whispered conversation between the forest and the temple. Historically, bamboo groves have been cherished in Buddhist practice for their symbolic representation of resilience, flexibility, and humility, qualities that mirror the mind's desired state in meditation. Scholars still debate whether these groves were planted primarily for aesthetic inspiration or as intentional meditative aids, but the effect is unmistakable. The grove invites reflection and calm. A playful story emerges in your mind. A novice monk once tried to communicate with the bamboo by tapping each stalk rhythmically, believing they would respond with secret wisdom. The senior monks reportedly observed silently, smiling at the earnest yet whimsical experiment. Fringe anecdotes suggest that some still believe the bamboo can teach subtle lessons if approached with genuine curiosity. You feel a smile tugging at your lips as you imagine the bamboo responding in a language older than words, rustling with ancient patience. The air here carries a mixture of earthy scents and the faint, lingering trace of incense from the nearby temple. You pause, allowing the sounds of the grove to settle into your consciousness, noticing the rhythmic sway of bamboo and the distant call of night birds. Monks still argue whether listening deeply to such natural symphonies constitutes meditation or distraction, but you find that simply standing in this living rhythm aligns your own breathing, offering a subtle, effortless focus. You notice small carvings along some of the bamboo stalks, worn smooth by time and hands, depicting miniature lotus flowers, playful animals, and abstract patterns. A fringe anecdote tells of a particularly artistic novice who carved secret messages into the bamboo, visible only to those who observed carefully. Scholars debate whether these carvings were devotional, mischievous, or both. Yet the presence of human expression within the grove adds layers of intimacy and charm. You imagine the gentle chuckles of monks discovering these tiny inscriptions, a reminder that humor and mindfulness often walk hand in hand. A soft breeze stirs, carrying with it faint chimes hung from the bamboo. The resulting melody blends with the rustling leaves, producing a naturally orchestrated soundscape. Some monks believe this wind music can deepen awareness, while skeptics suggest it is merely pleasant coincidence. You watch the patterns of shadow and light dance on the forest floor, realizing that whether intentional or accidental, the sensory experience gently trains your attention and invites contemplation. A tiny stream winds through the grove, its water glimmering under the moon. You kneel to observe, noticing the way the reflection of bamboo ripples with the current, creating shifting, hypnotic patterns. Fringe tales recount monks meditating beside such streams, claiming that watching water's movement mirrored the mind's constant flux. Scholars debate the veracity, but you feel the symbolic truth. Awareness arises in observing movement without clinging, accepting impermanence as a natural rhythm of life. The grove deepens, shadows lengthen, and occasional owl calls punctuate the quiet. You notice the delicate interplay of moonlight and bamboo stalks, creating intricate lattices of silver and black. Monks often teach that observing these subtle patterns sharpens perception and cultivates patience, turning even a simple walk into a meditative journey. Fringe stories claim that some masters could navigate the grove blindfolded, relying solely on auditory cues and subtle tactile feedback, demonstrating a heightened, playful attunement to their environment. You pause beneath a particularly tall clump of bamboo, inhaling deeply, allowing the earthy scent and soft, rustling sounds to fill your awareness. The grove feels alive with history, generations of monks walking, observing, carving, laughing quietly, and meditating among these same stalks. Scholars debate whether bamboo's presence in temples was functional, symbolic, or aesthetic. But the lesson is clear. Resilience and flexibility are not abstract concepts. They are experienced in the very texture of the world around you. As you continue along the winding path, the bamboo seems to lean subtly, guiding your steps, as if inviting you into a deeper connection with the grove itself. You sense the continuity of practice across centuries, the interplay of natural rhythm, human creativity, and quiet humor. The grove teaches patience, attentiveness, and gentle amusement, reminding you that even in solemn spaces, the living world contributes to mindfulness, curiosity, and serenity. Rising from the path, you take a last deep breath, noticing the scent, sound, and subtle motion lingering in your mind. The bamboo grove recedes behind you, yet its presence remains, a quiet teacher of rhythm, flexibility, and gentle observation, ready to accompany you further along the temple's night-bound journey. You emerge from the bamboo grove onto a small hill overlooking the temple's main hall. Bathed in the soft glow of moonlight, the roof tiles glisten like dark jewels, and the silhouette of the bell tower stands tall against the night sky. From here, you can hear the faint echo of the evening's final chant, now softened to a whisper, mingling with the subtle rustle of trees and the distant drip of water from the roof eaves. Historically, temple hilltops served as vantage points for both contemplation and observation, offering monks a space to watch the cycles of nature while cultivating inner stillness. Scholars still debate whether the choice of location was practical, symbolic, or a combination of both. But the effect is undeniable. A sense of openness and perspective arises naturally. A quirky anecdote drifts into your mind. A monk once carried a telescope to this very hill, attempting to observe the mind of the stars. He spent entire nights tracing constellations, claiming that the patterns mirrored hidden truths of human consciousness. Senior monks chuckled at his persistence. Yet the novice developed a reputation for gentle insight and unexpected humor. Fringe stories suggest that some still believe gazing at the stars in this way can reveal subtle insights about karma, while skeptics call it charming nonsense. Either way, the image lingers with a smile, blending awe and whimsy. You settle on a stone ledge, letting your legs dangle over the edge. The cool night air brushes your skin, carrying scents of earth, incense, and distant blooms. Monks have long recommended brief periods of observation like this to cultivate awareness of impermanence, the fleeting nature of clouds, the changing phases of the moon, and the subtle transformation of light across the landscape. Scholars debate whether such observations were intended as meditative training or aesthetic enjoyment. But you feel both coexist naturally here. A lone owl perches atop a distant pine, its eyes reflecting the moon as it cools softly into the night. Fringe anecdotes tell of a master who claimed that nocturnal creatures offered subtle guidance to the attentive observer, their behaviors mirroring inner states. Skeptics dismiss such claims, yet you find a quiet resonance in watching the owl's measured movements, realizing that attention to detail can unlock both curiosity and calm. The owl's rhythmic calls align seamlessly with your breathing, each exhale releasing tension, and each inhale drawing in serenity. Your gaze shifts downward to the courtyard below, where lanterns still glow faintly, their reflections shimmering in puddles from earlier rains. Monks walk slowly along stone paths, carrying candles, their shadows stretching and twisting in moonlight. Fringe tales tell of a monk who once practiced walking meditation entirely in darkness, guided only by the faint reflection of lantern light and his own awareness. Scholars argue whether such practices are extreme or exemplary, but you feel the lesson is clear. Attentive presence is more potent than external illumination. The hilltop offers a panorama not only of the temple but of the surrounding mountains. Mist drifts along valleys, curling like soft ribbons around ancient pines. You inhale deeply, the cool mountain air mingling with faint incense carried on the breeze. Historically, mountains have been considered sacred in Buddhist tradition, offering a natural environment conducive to meditation and reflection. Monks still debate whether isolation or exposure to natural grandeur is more beneficial for cultivating insight, and you allow both perspectives to blend in your contemplation. A small stone lantern flickers nearby, its flame dancing in rhythm with the breeze. Fringe anecdotes claim that monks would sometimes use such lanterns to practice visualization, imagining the light as their own mind, steady yet flickering with thoughts. Other scholars argue that this was a symbolic exercise in imagination and attention, rather than literal spiritual practice. You observe the flame's subtle movement, noticing its impermanence and delicate beauty. A microcosm of both life and thought, you pause to listen to the quiet orchestra of night, the distant drip of water, the soft rustling of leaves, the subtle echo of the temple's walls, and your own steady breath. Each sound is both ordinary and profound, inviting careful attention. Fringe stories describe monks entering deep meditation at such hilltops, claiming the layering of sound, scent, and visual input could guide awareness toward insights inaccessible in closed rooms. Scholars question whether these experiences were universal or individual, yet you feel the stillness enfolding you is enough. Rising slowly, you trace the stone path back toward the temple's main hall, each step deliberate and mindful. The hilltop offers a final lesson. From distance comes perspective, and from careful observation comes gentle understanding. You carry with you the subtle lessons of openness, attentiveness, and interplay between humor and reverence. The moonlight bathes your path, and as you descend, the tranquility of the night temple continues to envelop your senses, preparing you for the deeper mysteries yet to be revealed. You enter a quiet cloister tucked behind the temple's main hall, where the walls are lined with small alcoves holding ancient relics, incense burners, and faded murals depicting wandering monks in contemplative postures. The air carries a faint sweetness, a combination of aged wood, incense, and the subtle earthiness of centuries-old stone. Historically, cloisters have served as transitional spaces, places for quiet reflection between active practice and meditation, and as galleries preserving both sacred objects and subtle reminders of daily monastic life. Scholars still debate whether their design was primarily functional or intended to cultivate an immersive spiritual atmosphere. But here you sense both. A playful anecdote drifts into your mind. One monk, fascinated by the relics, attempted to catalogue them all by creating tiny sketches in his notebook. He became so absorbed that he occasionally added whimsical details, tiny dragons or hidden smiling faces, causing later novices to stumble upon these artistic surprises and chuckle quietly. Fringe stories suggest that some of these hidden doodles were intentional tests, meant to see who was truly attentive. You smile at the idea that even in such sacred spaces, levity and curiosity were woven into centuries of devotion. You pause before an alcove holding a small bronze bell, noticing the intricate carvings of lotus petals and cloud motifs. The bell has likely been rung countless times, its sound marking the passage of hours and intentions. Monks have long held that auditory cues, like the resonance of a bell, help anchor the mind in the present moment, blending ritual, mindfulness, and temporal awareness. Scholars debate whether the precise timing of these chimes was more for spiritual focus or organizational necessity. Yet the effect is deeply meditative. A faint breeze stirs, carrying a wisp of incense that dances lazily across the cloister floor. You notice subtle textures in the murals, the careful brush strokes that depict monks in motion, leaves trembling in the wind, and birds mid-flight. Fringe anecdotes tell of a novice who spent nights tracing these images with his fingers, claiming to internalize the movements as a form of kinesthetic meditation. Skeptics dismiss it as unnecessary obsession, but you find the act both playful and deeply connective, a bridge between observation and embodiment. Your attention shifts to the low wooden beams above, where small talismans hang, each tied with delicate threads in varying colors. Some are blessings for protection, others reminders of vows, and a few are curious experiments, monks' attempts to visualize abstract concepts like compassion or patience. Scholars debate whether these talismans hold intrinsic spiritual power or serve as external focus points to train the mind. But you notice their presence subtly guides your attention, encouraging mindful observation. A soft tapping sound draws your gaze to the far end of the cloister, where a tiny cat slinks quietly along the stone floor. Fringe stories suggest that monks often welcomed small animals into sacred spaces, believing they contributed to awareness by embodying simplicity and immediacy. You watch as the cat pauses mid-step, ears flicking, eyes alert, fully present in the moment. It is a living lesson in mindfulness, unself-conscious, precise, and playful. The murals seem almost to breathe under the moonlight filtering through the lattice windows, the painted figures appearing to shift subtly as shadows dance across the surfaces. Monks still debate whether these effects were deliberately exploited for meditation or a natural optical phenomena, but you allow yourself to experience the quiet magic of perception, noticing how the visual rhythm of light, shadow, and line captures attention without effort. You kneel briefly, letting the quiet envelop you. The interplay of relics, murals, incense, and the occasional movement of small animals creates a multi-layered sensory meditation. Fringe anecdotes describe monks entering profound states of insight simply by allowing the cloister's elements to guide their awareness, turning observation into contemplation. Scholars remain divided on the efficacy of such practices, but the peaceful resonance in your chest testifies to their subtle power. Rising slowly, you notice that even the faintest noises, the creak of floorboards, the distant drip of water, the whisper of air, become part of the cloister's orchestra. Each sound contributes to a heightened sense of presence, gently guiding your attention outward and inward simultaneously. The space teaches you that stillness does not require isolation. The ordinary, observed with care, can become a profound teacher. Finally, you step toward the exit, carrying with you the quiet lessons of observation, attentiveness, and playful curiosity embedded in the cloister. The artifacts, murals, and delicate rhythms of life within this space linger in your awareness, reminding you that mindfulness can thrive in subtle, layered experiences where reverence and gentle amusement coexist seamlessly. You descend a narrow staircase that leads into the temple's underground meditation hall, a space carved from stone and bathed in faint amber light from flickering lanterns. The air is cooler here, carrying a faint earthy scent mixed with lingering incense. Historically, subterranean chambers were often used for intensive meditation retreats, offering isolation from distractions and amplifying focus on breath, mantra, or visualization. Scholars still debate whether the choice of location enhanced spiritual attainment or simply symbolize withdrawal from worldly concerns. Yet you immediately sense a hush that encourages inward attention. A quirky anecdote drifts into your awareness. A novice once attempted to meditate in complete silence for an entire night, only to be startled by a small bat that had made its home in a corner. The startled flaps prompted a cascade of laughter among senior monks observing from afar. Fringe stories claim that the bat became a secret companion to the monk, appearing at precise moments to remind him of impermanence and playful unpredictability. You imagine the soft rustle of wings, the startled squeak, and the monk's quiet giggles, blending humor with spiritual insight. You take a seat on a low wooden bench, noticing the cool smoothness beneath your palms. Lanterns flicker across the stone walls, creating subtle, shifting shadows that dance in rhythm with your breath. Monks have long used dim lighting to enhance concentration, encouraging the mind to turn inward while remaining alert to subtle, sensory input. Scholars debate whether the minimal light was functional or symbolic, representing the flickering mind in need of guidance. Yet the effect is immediately grounding. A soft scent of camphor and sandalwood drifts from an alcove where incense burns. Fringe anecdotes suggest that certain monks would intentionally mix scents to elicit different emotional or cognitive states during meditation, experimenting as both spiritualists and early psychologists. Skeptics dismiss this as superstition, but you notice the subtle effect on your own focus. The aroma encourages calm, curiosity, and gentle reflection. The scent weaves through the hall like a quiet guide, leading awareness from one subtle sensation to the next. You notice carved symbols along the walls, worn smooth by centuries of hands tracing them in reverence. Some depict lotus flowers, others abstract geometric forms, while a few bear playful additions, tiny smiling faces, or whimsical patterns, reminders that humor was not excluded from sacred spaces. Monks still debate whether these carvings were devotional, didactic, or mischievous, but their presence encourages attentiveness and a subtle delight in discovery. You run your fingers lightly along one of the carvings, feeling the depth and texture, imagining centuries of curiosity and care. A gentle dripping sound echoes from the stone ceiling, merging with the faint hum of distant chanting from the main hall above. Fringe anecdotes tell of monks meditating for hours, simply listening to the hall's ambient sounds, claiming they revealed patterns of impermanence and harmony within the universe. Other scholars argue that any perceived insight was psychosomatic, yet the effect is unmistakable. Your mind becomes quietly attuned to subtle rhythm and texture, each sound a teacher in its own right. You close your eyes briefly, feeling the cool air, the scent of incense, and the gentle rhythm of dripping water combine into a unified sensory meditation. Monks often teach that sensory awareness, when observed without attachment, cultivates both calm and insight. Fringe stories describe novices achieving sudden clarity by focusing entirely on one dripping sound, while skeptics call it anecdotal, yet the potential for focused presence is evident. The stone walls seem to absorb your breath, returning calm in gentle waves. A small alcove at the far end contains an ancient bell, its surface pitted with age but still polished to a soft gleam. You imagine monks striking it deliberately during meditation, the resonant tone lingering long after the strike, guiding attention and anchoring awareness. Scholars debate whether such resonance primarily impacts neurological patterns or spiritual perception, but the effect is undeniable. You feel the imagined vibration echo through your chest, aligning body and mind in subtle harmony. Rising slowly, you leave the meditation hall, carrying with you the cool, quiet presence of the subterranean space. The whispers of stone, scent, and shadow linger in your awareness, a reminder that focused attention and gentle curiosity can transform ordinary perception into profound experience. As you ascend toward the surface, the world above feels both larger and more intimate, filled with subtle lessons waiting in every shadow, echo, and flicker of light. You emerge from the meditation hall into a narrow corridor lined with shelves holding scrolls and faded manuscripts. The air here carries the faint mustiness of ancient paper, mingled with lingering incense from the hall below. Historically, monasteries preserved knowledge through careful transcription and storage of sutras, commentaries, and teaching notes, often hidden away to protect them from fire, water, or neglect. Scholars still debate whether these collections were primarily intended for public instruction, private study, or symbolic reverence. But the quiet presence of these scrolls immediately invites reverence and curiosity. A curious anecdote surfaces. A young monk, fascinated by the manuscripts, once tried to read by candlelight for hours, only to fall asleep repeatedly atop the scrolls. When he awoke, his head resting on a stack of delicate paper, he found faint impressions of his face left on the inked surfaces, prompting laughter from senior monks. Fringe stories claim that some novices considered these impressions subtle blessings or messages from past masters, while skeptics dismiss it as whimsical coincidence. Either way, the tale reflects the gentle humour threaded through monastic life. You run your fingers lightly along a scroll, feeling the textured fibres of handmade paper and the delicate brush strokes of inked characters. Monks have long regarded calligraphy as a meditative practice, where each movement embodies attention, intention, and reverence. Scholars debate whether the aesthetic perfection was paramount or whether the process of writing itself conveyed the true lesson. You feel both possibilities coexist, a harmony of form and mindful practice. A soft breeze drifts through a nearby window, causing the edges of the scrolls to flutter slightly. Fringe anecdotes suggest that some monks interpreted such subtle movements as signs, messages from unseen guides, or reflections of impermanence in action. Skeptics call it imaginative overreach. Yet you find the phenomenon quietly mesmerizing. The movement of paper, like water or leaves, reminds you that life, even in stillness, is never entirely static. You notice faded annotations in the margins, tiny symbols and personal notes left by monks across generations. Some are instructional, others whimsical, and a few cryptic. Scholars debate whether these annotations reflect personal reflection, humour, or secret teaching. But the variety demonstrates a living conversation between practitioners across centuries. You imagine monks discovering these notes, laughing softly, or pausing to ponder wisdom embedded in tiny scribbles. Their lives quietly intertwined through shared curiosity. The corridor narrows, leading to a small reading alcove with a low wooden bench. You settle, letting the stillness enfold you. Monks often spend hours quietly copying texts, each stroke a blend of devotion and attentive labour. Fringe stories recount a master who claimed he could sense the emotional state of the previous scribe through the brushwork, reading energy as well as letters. Scholars remain skeptical, yet you sense an undeniable depth in the connection between hands, mind, and text. A lantern flickers nearby, casting moving shadows across the shelves and the open scroll before you. you notice the subtle rhythm of shadow and light, merging with the faint scent of paper and incense. Monks still debate whether the sensory environment amplifies meditation or simply enhances concentration, but you feel the gentle alignment of your awareness with the ambient patterns. Even the simplest elements, the sway of light, the texture of paper, invite attention and contemplation. You pause to inhale deeply, the mingling aromas of aged paper, ink, and faint incense grounding you. Fringe anecdotes claim that monks sometimes traced ancient texts by touch alone, allowing the fingers to read as the eyes rested, cultivating heightened awareness and patience. Scholars debate the feasibility, yet the notion of tactile mindfulness resonates as you move your hands along the scrolls, feeling history and care embedded in every fibre. Rising slowly, you leave the manuscript corridor, carrying with you a quiet sense of lineage, patience, and meticulous attention. The scrolls, annotations, and subtle interplay of light and shadow remain in your awareness, reminders that wisdom is not only read, but experienced, observed, and gently cherished across time. As you continue through the temple, the presence of past practitioners seems to walk beside you, offering both insight and quiet amusement. You step into the temple's tea house, a small, intimate room filled with low tables, tatami mats, and the faint scent of roasted leaves. Moonlight filters through paper shoji screens, painting the space in soft silver patterns that shift as you move. Historically, tea rituals in Buddhist monasteries were more than refreshment. They were an exercise in mindfulness, cultivating presence, patience, and subtle awareness with every measured movement. Scholars still debate whether the ritual originated for spiritual focus or practical alertness during long meditation sessions, but the atmosphere alone invites calm and reflection. A playful anecdote drifts into your mind. A young monk once attempted to brew tea precisely according to the manual, yet inadvertently dropped the whisk into the pot, creating a frothier concoction than intended. Senior monks tasted it and laughed softly, praising the unexpected texture as a lesson in imperfection and the joy of unpredictability. Fringe stories suggest that some masters intentionally added small mishaps to tea rituals to test attention and adaptability, while skeptics call it gentle exaggeration. Either way, you feel the blend of precision and playful imperfection permeate the room. You kneel beside a steaming teapot, noticing the soft, almost hypnotic swirl of rising steam. Monks have long observed that even the smallest details, the tilt of the teacup, the angle of the pour, the warmth of hands, offer lessons in focus and presence. Scholars debate whether these actions primarily train the mind or cultivate a spiritual sensibility, yet you sense both as you inhale the earthy aroma of the tea leaves, letting it settle into your awareness. A small kettle sings softly over a low flame, the sound mingling with the distant rustle of the garden outside. Fringe anecdotes recount monks claiming that attentive listening to the kettle's hiss could reveal subtle lessons in impermanence and timing, as if even water communicates its transient nature. Skeptics dismiss this as fanciful, but you feel the rhythm harmonizing with your breath, each gentle hiss a cue for presence and patience. You pour a cup carefully, noticing the color of the liquid and the subtle ripples created as it fills the bowl. Monks often emphasize observation as meditation. Seeing the tea's surface and attending to every detail encourages quiet attentiveness. Fringe stories describe masters who meditated on a single cup for hours, observing evaporation, light reflections, and aroma, claiming these exercises cultivated both patience and insight. Scholars debate the literal value, yet the practice's psychological effect is undeniable. Your mind slows, attunes, and softens, you take a small sip, allowing the warmth to spread, noticing the subtle flavors unfolding on your tongue. Monks teach that mindful consumption is an act of gratitude and presence, integrating nourishment with awareness. Fringe anecdotes suggest that some novices could detect slight variations in flavor, claiming this heightened discernment extended to daily perception. While skeptics dismiss it as overinterpretation, you smile quietly, savoring both taste and the gentle exercise of attention. A gentle breeze stirs the shoji screens, carrying the soft scent of flowers from the garden outside. You notice the interplay of light, aroma, and temperature, a multi-sensory lesson in observation and impermanence. Monks still debate whether sensory immersion in rituals like tea preparation accelerates insight or merely cultivates comfort and attentiveness. But you sense both harmoniously blending in this quiet practice. The room is small, yet rich with layered details, the polished wooden surfaces, the faint scratches on tables, the subtle curves of ceramic bowls, the shadows cast by the flickering lantern. Each element contributes to a holistic awareness, inviting a gentle attentiveness that is simultaneously playful and profound. Fringe stories describe monks who achieved insights into patience and compassion by performing simple tea ceremonies repeatedly, embracing both routine and spontaneity. You feel the resonance of these lessons as you slowly move through the tea house, mindful of every motion, every breath, every fleeting sensation. Rising from your seat, you leave the tea house with a calm, grounded energy. The subtle warmth, aroma, and rhythm of the ritual linger in your awareness, reminding you that presence and attentiveness can be cultivated even in small, ordinary actions. The space teaches that mindfulness is both a practice and a playful observation, where reverence and gentle curiosity coexist effortlessly. You walk along a quiet corridor that leads to the temple's open terrace, where the night sky stretches endlessly above, dotted with stars that shimmer like scattered pearls. The cool breeze carries scents of pine, earth, and faint incense drifting upward from the courtyard below. Historically, open terraces in monasteries served as contemplative spaces, offering expansive views for reflection, stargazing, and a sense of the infinite. Scholars still debate whether such spaces were intended for symbolic communion with the cosmos or practical breathing room for large gatherings. Yet the sense of openness and perspective is immediate and profound. A playful anecdote comes to mind. A novice once attempted to count the stars while maintaining perfect posture in seated meditation. Hours later, he fell asleep mid-count, waking to find the senior monk beside him, quietly noting his progress in a ledger. Fringe tales suggest that the night sky sometimes revealed unexpected insights, or at least amusing stories. To those who observed with patience and humor, you smile at the thought, appreciating how levity weaves seamlessly with devotion in monastic life. You step onto the terrace, feeling the smooth stone beneath your feet, slightly cool from the night air. Monks have long used these elevated spaces to practice awareness of impermanence. Clouds drift across constellations, stars fade and reappear, and the moon waxes and wanes, all reminding practitioners that change is constant and observation is key. Scholars debate whether such nightly observances were strictly spiritual exercises or simply quiet moments of awe. Yet the experience invites a profound sense of humility and calm. A distant bell tolls softly from the main hall, each note resonating through the night, mingling with the gentle rustle of leaves and distant owl calls. Fringe anecdotes describe monks using bell sounds to mark subtle transitions in awareness, claiming that attentive listening opens the mind to the rhythm of impermanence. Skeptics question whether these auditory practices offer measurable insight, yet the harmonics of the bell seem to align effortlessly with your breath, guiding both attention and relaxation. You lean on the terrace railing, looking down at the illuminated courtyard where lanterns cast gentle glows on polished stones. Novices walk slowly along stone paths, their steps deliberate, embodying mindfulness in motion. Fringe stories tell of monks who practiced observing shadows and reflections as a form of meditative insight, learning subtle lessons about perception, presence, and the fleeting nature of appearances. Scholars debate the efficacy of such practices, but you feel the quiet depth of observation enriching your own awareness. The terrace feels alive with subtle motion. The breeze shifts lantern light, trees sway softly, and your own breath rises and falls in gentle rhythm. Monks still argue whether the integration of multiple senses, sight, sound, scent, touch, is essential to deep meditation, yet your senses merge naturally with the night's environment. Fringe anecdotes suggest that the most profound insights often arise during such quiet, multi-sensory observation. Where ordinary phenomena reveal extraordinary lessons, a solitary crane glides silently across the moonlit sky, its reflection faintly mirrored in a nearby pond. Monks have historically regarded cranes as symbols of longevity, mindfulness, and grace, their movement offering a living illustration of balance and attentiveness. Fringe tales speak of masters who would quietly track the flight of birds to observe patterns in nature and mind, teaching both patience and focus. Scholars remain intrigued by the intersection of observation and meditation, yet you experience the truth directly. Stillness and attentiveness harmonize in this quiet moment. The terrace allows a panoramic view of surrounding mountains, mist curling in valleys like drifting silk. You inhale the crisp air, carrying both calm and subtle exhilaration. Monks often teach that observing vast landscapes nurtures perspective, reminding the practitioner of the relative smallness of self and the interconnection of all phenomena. Fringe anecdotes recount novices experiencing moments of spontaneous insight when gazing across such expanses, while skeptics interpret these as coincidence or suggestion. Either way, you feel a gentle opening in your awareness, a soft expansion of mind and heart. As you sit quietly, the universe seems to breathe along with you. Stars shimmer, lanterns glow, leaves rustle, and your own pulse aligns with the subtle rhythm of night. The terrace, the sky, the distant bell, and the gentle movement of all living things teach that mindfulness is woven through observation, patience and playfulness, humor, curiosity, reverence, and presence coexist effortlessly in this sacred space. You let the gentle symphony of sights, sounds, and scents settle into your consciousness, a calm and lasting imprint of the monastic night. Finally, you rise slowly, turning to leave the terrace. The vast sky and softly glowing temple remain with you, whispering lessons of impermanence, attentiveness, and quiet joy. Every step along the corridor, every inhalation of night air carries the resonance of centuries of wandering monks, whispered sutras, and playful insights. You feel anchored, serene, and gently amused, ready to carry these subtle lessons into dream-filled rest, aware that mindfulness, humor, and attentiveness accompany you wherever you go tonight. As you settle into your quiet space, imagine the temple's moonlit corridors and terraces gently folding around your senses. The soft hum of distant bells, the rustle of leaves, and the faint, lingering aroma of incense carry you into a state of gentle awareness. Every breath draws in the calm of centuries, and every exhale releases tension, leaving space for serenity to expand. You may notice thoughts wandering, drifting like clouds across a vast sky, but that is entirely natural, and even the calmest mind experiences little storms. Picture the bamboo grove swaying, the cloister's scrolls whispering stories, the tea houses steaming tea, and the vast terrace under the night sky. Each scene is a layer of quiet, weaving together lessons of patience, presence, and playful insight. Fringe anecdotes, subtle humor, and whispered sutras mingle with historical truths, creating a rich tapestry that reminds you mindfulness is both gentle and alive, playful and profound. Scholars may debate its methods, monks may chuckle at whimsy, yet your awareness absorbs the essence effortlessly. Allow your senses to soften. The touch of smooth stone, the gentle flicker of lanterns, the subtle warmth of tea, and the distant rhythm of bell tolls become companions in stillness. Every sensory detail carries its lesson: impermanence in the stars, attention in the flutter of leaves, curiosity in carved symbols, and light-hearted joy in small, unexpected moments. You realize that quiet observation and gentle engagement with your surroundings are themselves acts of meditation. Slowly, let the temple, the mountains, and the night sky fade into the soft theatre of your imagination. Each gentle detail, each subtle sound, drifts backward like a soft wave, leaving a calm, expansive awareness at the center of your being. Humor, reverence, and attentive presence remain as quiet guides. Feel your body, your breath, and your mind aligned in gentle harmony. Now drift fully into the night, carrying the serenity, curiosity, and subtle joy of the hidden mountain monks with you. Let their whispered sutras linger softly as you move seamlessly into dreams, sweet dreams, and may the quiet wisdom of this night accompany your rest.